Welcome to the presentation on Oakland Community College Highland Lakes campus, proposed Waterford Township Community Center. I'm Allison Swanson, Director with the Waterford Parks and Recreation Department, and it's my honor to be here to present to you the ideas we have and the feasibility study that has been long awaited. We've been working on this since the beginning of the year. So we are going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the cost and what that means to you guys as the voters in the community. Then we'll have a chance to answer some questions. And then before you leave, we won't have guided tours, but if you want to take a look around the facility, the classrooms are locked because there's a lot of technology in the rooms, but you're able to take a look around the student center and the phys ed building if you want to take a look and see the facilities that we are proposing to utilize for the community center here in the township. So with me, I have Robert Stempian, Senior Vice President with Plant Brand Real Point. Robert's an architect with more than 40 years of design and construction experience, and he has a great understanding of project implementation and planning, programming and budgeting, design and construction execution. He has a background in architecture and construction to provide unique solutions leading to project success. And he has a lot of experience dealing with municipalities, community centers, recreation facilities. So this is like his wheelhouse. So we are able to harness his knowledge and what they've done in other communities throughout the state and bring that here to implement here at OCC. First I want to let you guys know, obviously there's a lot of questions about this project in particular, but there are two issues this year pertaining to Waterford Parks and Recreation that are important for me to note. So the first issue is that we have an operating millage for our Parks and Recreation Department that is up for a renewal and restoration on the August ballot. So not to confuse that with this campus project and the bond, I want to make sure I clarify that. So our operating millage that is going to be on the ballot for August is a renewal and restoration of our current 10-year operating millage. This millage allows us to operate our Parks and Recreation Department as it is today with our employees, our 16 parks and facilities, over 850 acres of space here throughout the township, providing many, many programs, activities, and events throughout the year for community members of all ages. So that is on the ballot, and that is a separate issue from what we're discussing today. What we're discussing today is the community center, which would be a bond proposal that will go on the ballot in November. And the bond proposal is only able to be used, it cannot be used for operations. A bond proposal can only be used for planning for a facility, like the professional services, the actual facility updates, and the construction, and all those types of things. So we just want to clarify that with you. There's two separate important issues that voters will be faced with this year pertaining to our Parks and Recreation Department. So as you sit here, before I turn it over to Robert for the feasibility study, which I know you guys all want to learn about, just sit here. This is a beautiful facility. If you've never been here, I encourage you to take a look around after we're done here today and just envision the possibilities for our community members and those from surrounding communities. A community center on this campus could accommodate all ages, seniors all the way to the littlest little ones, providing multi-generational activities and events that enrich, strengthen, and enhance Waterford Township, providing a gathering place where friendships and social networks are built, a neutral ground where people of all ages, ethnicities, socioeconomic statuses can meet, interact, and engage with each other. This could be a community center that can play a key role in shaping the identity of Waterford Township, a physical symbol of community belonging here in Waterford. And I understand, as we'll get to the cost at the end, this is going to be an investment. It's an investment for you community members, it's an investment for the township, it's an investment in your community and recreation. The desire for investment by local governments and community infrastructure is very important, and throughout the nation, National Recreation Park Association has surveyed individuals, and nearly 92% of all U.S. adults resonate the fact that it is important for local governments to invest in community infrastructures, which include senior centers, parks, recreation centers, and community centers. So we're not alone here in the community when we are saying, you know, how important it is to make an investment. And I understand it's an investment and it's your dollars at work here if this comes to fruition, but it's a wonderful investment in our community that we all love and care about very deeply. So I'll turn it over to Robert, and he will talk to you guys about the feasibility study that we've been taking on over the last several months.
Thank you, Allison. Morning, everybody. Good to see so many people here. We're going to have some questions and answers after the presentation. That's what this is all about, this interaction and trying to answer some of your questions that you may have about this fantastic opportunity for Waterford Township. So just a firm overview of our company, Cameron Real Point. What we are is a group of 125 individuals with different various backgrounds, from architecture to construction to real estate to accounting. There's a lot of great individuals that work for our company that help put together these type of reports. We were engaged with Waterford Township back in the latter part of 2023 for this feasibility study to look at this campus, specifically the student center and the physical education building and the site. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our findings related to those two buildings. We also do real estate consulting for our clients. It's basically a third-party review sometimes of different initiatives, capital planning, and also owner rep services. As far as our public sector clients, you can see we work for a variety of different clients throughout the state of Michigan and elsewhere. This is a partial listing of some of those clients that we get involved with, doing similar feasibility studies like we did for Waterford Township. And our clients range from, Oakland County, Macomb County, Wayne County, City of Royal Oak. If you've ever been downtown, we were part of their big development there. Livonia, City of Westland, Hamilton County, which is down in Ohio, a large program there as well. But specifically, community centers is really, one of my niche areas that I'm involved with. Currently, we just broke ground with Redford Township. They're building a 35,000 square foot community center for them. Van Buren Township, which is an addition and renovation project. The groundbreak is actually Monday, the ribbon cutting is Monday. The Hawk, we were involved with that with a conversion of an existing high school into a rec center. West Bloomfield, we did a feasibility study for them as well, and also Grosse Pointe Neighborhood Club. So getting on to the building and site evaluation that we did for Waterford. You can see this is a map showing where your existing rec center and your senior center is located with the relationship that OCC Ellen Lakes campus. Currently, the population study that we did indicated that you have about 70,000 residents in Waterford Township. Basically a steady, if not a slightly declining growth, but it's holding around the 70,000 mark. I also went out and I visited your existing rec center, which was built in 1947. It sits on an 8.7 acre site. And I also visited the Waterford Senior Center, which is the Leggett Early Childhood Center. That was built in 1964. Both these buildings, they are serving the purpose of what they provide, but there's definitely more opportunity I see with these buildings here on this campus. These are just some photos of Waterford Rec Center. There are some issues with the structure that need to be addressed: site drainage, undersized gym, and they really can't accommodate all the programs that Waterford Township is seeking. And there's some infrastructure things that need to be addressed for that 1947 building. And then I did visit the Waterford Senior Center. There are also some program deficiencies as far as accommodating programs. Meals on Wheels, it's They have a prep area that's not associated with the gym. It's down the hallway, so there's a lot of transferring of food to a different area in order to prep it for delivery. Storage needs and older furniture throughout the building. The wood shop is a little bit undersized for the purpose of what it's intended to be used for. So having all that background information was a good understanding for me to go forward with looking at these buildings that are currently on this campus. This is just a depiction of the buildings that we are looking at the Student Center, the Physical Education Building, but it's surrounded by High Oaks Hall and Levinson Hall, just to the north of the, or I guess that would be the north of the Physical Education Building. So the Student Center building, I would have to say, has been very well maintained over the years. The finishes are in good shape. I think Ken Reynolds, who's the Director of Facilities here at OCC, has done a great job maintaining both buildings. But of course, due to their age, there's things that need to be updated. It might not be so apparent, but when you start looking at ADA compliance issues, code issues, and things like that, and also trying to fit your program elements within a student center design building. So there are some modifications that would have to be done to this building and also the Physical Education building. This building is about 24,000 square feet. It was built in 1972 with an addition that was put on in 1992, which is the early childhood center that's over on this side of the building. One unique feature of both buildings, the Student Center and the Physical Education building, is that they're serviced by a tunnel that goes to a power plant. Now, in order to be standalone buildings, they would have to have their own separate heating, ventilating, and air conditioning system, separate from that power plant, because the power plant would be outside of the confines of the property. So the probable cost that we put together would accommodate this need of having a separate, power plant for each one of these buildings. Also, this roof is probably about 32 years old. Right now, there's no evidence of leaks, but we have to plan for replacing that roof in the future. It also, as I mentioned, there's some code compliance issues. For instance, the stairwells. These stairwells and guards do not meet code. Also, ADA compliance. Those are some issues that would have to be addressed as well when you take over a building like this. These are just some photos of some of the spaces within the building. Some of the classrooms, which were used for technology, teaching, instructional teaching. The second level really has a dining room overlook, similar to the look of what we see over there. But of course, it doesn't meet code compliance because of the openings that you have between the slats of the wood. So all of this has to be taken into consideration and priced out for bringing it up to code. These are some photos of the early childhood center. You can see this low sinks, and drinking fountains. It was sized for smaller occupants. So that function was abandoned a few years back, but this would be part of the space that we would renovate to accommodate program for the rec center. And onto the Physical Education building. This is approximately 35,000 square feet. Very large gym within the building. The locker rooms are a little bit antiquated if you have a chance to go over there and take a look at them. And I would say a little bit more tired than this building is. It does not have air conditioning that you'll probably notice on a day like today. It was built in 1977. There were no additions put onto this building, so it's pretty much the way it was when it was built in the 70s. This also has its heating provided through the tunnel system that comes from the power plant. So once that's severed, you'd have to put in your own heating and cooling system to service that building. It needs some lighting upgrades and various other functional things that need to be improved. ADA compliance issues that you have with the restrooms, locker rooms, door hardware, everything else that would bring this up to code. It does have some clear story windows, which are kind of nice, bringing natural light, some nice amenities within this building. But you'll notice that the corridor, the west entry corridor, is very tight. It's not really conducive for large crowds, I would say. So there are some improvements that could be provided for this building. And these are just some photos of the exterior. It's basically a brick building with a metal roof. And then getting onto the building site and program, these are just some of the program elements that would be typical for a community center that we could potentially provide for these buildings. And this was based upon a survey that was done, Parks and Rec survey, in the 2023 Parks and Rec 5-year master plan. Also, it depicts what was proposed back in 2018 with a program for a new rec center that was part of a bond issue that failed. So we took that as a basis for developing the program for the physical education building, the student center building, and the site. These are just some concept plans of how this particular building could be renovated. It would have a main entry point, which would be here where you came in. This, of course, would have to be modified to provide some kind of control point for people to come in and out, more of for security purposes. Also, potentially putting the canopies so that seniors could be dropped off with a covered entry point for entry into the building, and several other modifications to help accommodate the program. The yellow spaces are additions that may need to occur in order to fit every program element that you had on the list according to the survey and the 2018 plan. And this would be the second level with some of the program elements. This also would accommodate the Parks and Rec offices, which is element number 5. Currently, they are offices, so there wouldn't be a lot of renovation that would have to occur there to accommodate that need. And there's support spaces within this building that are depicted in different colors. So as far as the student center program, what would fit in here, there are some elements that we've provided. Like I mentioned, the Parks and Rec offices, a senior activity room, art room, pottery kiln room, media arts, wood shop, cooking kitchen, classroom, Meals on Wheels kitchen and prep area if that was a need that would be accommodated here, maker space, and potentially a video gaming. So it's really a multi-generational use for this facility, so we want to make sure that we cover all ages. As far as the physical education building, you can see the large block number 11 is where the gymnasium is. We would have to put in an addition in order to accommodate an entry point that's controlled for people in the building, along with a mechanical and storage room, which is the big number 2 item that's L-shaped on this plan. Also, the locker rooms would have to be renovated. They're pretty antiquated right now, and we have some other uses for the racquetball courts, which would be converted into a dance studio and perhaps a child watch area. So keep in mind, these are just concepts. Once you engage an architect, if the bond passes, they will refine these drawings, these program elements to make sure that it accommodates all the need for Waterford Township. Oops, sorry. Physical education building, these are just some visual images of what potentially could go into that building with updated locker rooms, reception, entry point, weight room, exercise room, dance studio, child watch, and perhaps a conference or party. This is a depiction of the site. You can see the boundary is roughly where what's being proposed for the Waterford Township portion of the campus. It's basically 51 acres, which is pretty large, significant size, but that affords you to provide a lot of on-site site amenities, which is great. Also, it has a connection to Hess Hathaway Park. There's opportunity for pickleball courts, tennis courts, shuffleball courts, table tennis, bocce, playground, amphitheater, which is currently over here. We would replace the one that's there because it's basically in very poor condition, but the plan is to replace it with a updated amphitheater. Outdoor restrooms, which is something the community wanted with the fields, so that would be accommodated as well as part of the program. A softball field, which is currently there, we would need some help. There's some renovation that we would have to do for that field. And also a walking track that would basically skirt around the site and the dog park, which you can see in the lower portion of the site plan. As I mentioned, some of the site amenities with the pickleball courts, which is very, something very favorable for these rec centers to have as an amenity. The tennis courts, shuffleball courts, table tennis, as I mentioned. And I think it's really this, the site being 51 acres gives you a lot of opportunity for development. The site that was being proposed back in 2018 was approximately 13 acres. So this is significantly larger than what was proposed in the past. So that's all I have as far as my presentation about the feasibility study that we did for Waterford Township. And Allison, you're going to talk a little bit more about village rates.
Okay, so thank you, Robert, for covering all that. As you can see, we have a lot of ideas and conceptual plans that would be, as Robert mentioned, more advanced once, if a bond passes, then professional services would be acquired to do more in-depth renderings and design ideas and things like that before we progress. But obviously you're all here because you wanted to hear what we had planned for the site, but you want to know what it is going to cost you, right? Bottom line, completely understand what is coming out of your pocket to pay for all this. And that is for the purchase of the 51 acres and the 4 buildings and all of the professional services, site development, building development, all of that. It's going to be approximately $35.7 million on the whole. This would be presented to you as a 20-year bond at 0.7644 mils. And what that means to you is here in this chart. Is that big enough for most of you to read? The average taxable value in Waterford from the assessing department was given to us. It's the bolden one, so it's $85,283. That would be a cost of $65.19 a year for 20 years for this. Now, this chart is an estimate. Just make sure you know that this is an estimate. The taxable value, the best way to find your taxable value is to look at your property tax statement. I think a lot of the tax bills maybe have not gone out yet, but there was a notice of assessment that was sent out to residents in February that also has that information on it. So you're able to look to that to find out what your taxable value of your home is. So this kind of gives you an idea. This chart is on our website, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. So you can look that up at your leisure. We have a website linked from the township website that will continue to be updated with more information. We will probably get the presentation from Robert and get that on there so you guys can look at it, pull it up at your leisure. This chart is on there, and that has the information on there that you'll want to know and look at when you get home, maybe to look at your tax bill or your property assessment so you can see what that actually is going to mean to you in dollars and cents. So, as you may be aware, the township entered into a purchase agreement with Oakland Community College at their May 28th township board meeting. This purchase agreement was for $2.8 million, and that's the purchase price of the property. That's included in the $35.7 million bond that will be presented to you in November. The purchase agreement, important to note, is contingent upon that bond passing. So if the bond on ballot proposal does not go through in November, the township has no obligation to purchase this property to Oakland Community College, and then back to the drawing board, I imagine, for OCC to figure out what this property then becomes, or what the 51 acres becomes. Let's see. So, and it's important to note, we can't give you a 100% down to the cents accurate price right now, because the bond rates that we're subject to for this loan, basically for the community center, they fluctuate with the market. So by the time we actually go through the end of this year, see if the ballot proposal is approved, get into next year and actually do the bonds, the rates are going to fluctuate. So I can't give you, that's the reason why we can't give you an exact dollar and cents figure right now. Let's see. Any other questions as far as this goes? Once we get through this, we can try to answer during Q&A, or you can reach out to me. I have a stack of cards here, and I will try to answer your questions. Let's see. Okay, we're going to wrap it up now because I know you're all here. There's a lot of you who have questions, and it's probably better just to go into Q&A portion. And I will have Chrissy and Carol help. What we're going to do is, because it's crowded and it's hard to get out of the aisles, Chrissy and Carol, or Chrissy or Carol, are going to come around with a wireless mic. So just please raise your hand. We'll try to handle this in as seamless as a way as possible. They'll bring you over the microphone. You can ask your question, and then Robert or I will answer that for you. Oh, sorry, she got into the back. Go ahead. We're going to go around with the microphone.
Okay, so my question is, my understanding is that if this bond passed and we went through with this, then we would sell the current rec center CAI building, and then that money has to be used for a community center. So how would that affect the bond? Because would it pay down the bond and we'd all owe less? Or is it going to end up paying down the bond and then we still pay and it goes into the general fund? Like, how's that going to work?
Okay, so the bond, if you guys approve the bond in November, the bond can only be used for this purpose, right? So for this OCC, what you're voting on, the $35.7 million can only be used for OCC, right? So they can't take any of that bond money and use it for any other purpose within the township. Similarly, the Waterford Recreation Center, formerly the CAI building, when that was deeded to the township, the stipulations in that deed, I don't have it right in front of me, but was something to the extent of, if that building is ever sold, the proceeds from the sale of that property could only be used for recreational facilities, something to replace the building that we're selling, basically. So that, again, also can't just be taken and put into the general fund. The purpose of the deeding of that building to the township was that there would always be some sort of community recreation center, senior activity center in the township, so that money has to be used for a like facility. So I imagine, I'm not in the finance realm of the township, but I would imagine that money could be used to go down to pay down the bond for this facility. So, yes.
So we all probably have some experience with how renovations go. How firm is that 35.7 million? Like, what happens if we find out the costs more?
So we projected those costs. The 35.7 million is actually a projected cost for that things would be in 2026. So we projected out to 2026 what those costs would be, because we won't be starting construction until after now. I mean, it's gonna be later, so those costs are elevated. There's contingency worked into that. And, I mean, unfortunately, things do happen. I know Sterling Heights, for example, they had budgeted a certain amount for their brand new community center. It was right after, during COVID time, the price of steel went up so high. They had to do some hard looking at finishes and things like that into the facility that they cut back on in order to make their community center actually still come to fruition. But it was able to be done given the cost increases that occurred in the construction market at the time. And I don't know if Robert has any way to speak to that other than.
So the estimate of probable cost for the center was based upon our historical database. We constantly bid out projects and look at the data to figure out how much does a new roof cost, or how much does an addition cost given its complexity. So we are constantly updating that list to understand what the market's at. We're seeing that there was a huge spike after COVID with pricing on materials, the availability of getting materials from overseas. We had a lot of issues with doors, hardware, mechanical units, and a variety of different building materials. Also, labor spiked as well. What we're witnessing now is that, for instance, like roofing used to be $30 a square foot, it's now coming down to 20. So we're seeing some stabilization, but not back to the pre-COVID levels. But it's favorable for a project like this, but we always have to look at inflation as we go forward, whether we're carrying like a 4 or 5% inflation rate to cover ourselves as we look at whatever year this facility would be built. Back during COVID, a year or two afterwards, we were seeing inflation rates between 8 to 10%. So now it's come down to more of a manageable 3 to 4%.
So right now, we are just talking about the 51 acres that's immediately off of Cooley Lake Road, and we are not talking about the OCC campus as a whole. Do we know who's buying the hospital side half and/or what they're proposing to do with that, and do we have a voice in what happens with that?
So, OCC wants to speak for this. Eunice is here from OCC. Eunice Jeffries from OCC. She can probably speak to that for you.
So good morning. I'm Eunice Jeffries. I work at OCC. My role at the college is government and community relations. And so I want to say my name again because
Talk more in the microphone, we're having trouble hearing you.
you can't hear me.
That's better.
Is that better? Okay. I'm Eunice Jeffries. I work for Oakland Community College. My role at the college is government and community relations. And so what that means, that's just really just fancy talk to say that I represent OCC in the community, like we're doing today, but it also means that I represent you to OCC. It's kind of a two-pronged function. So that's why I immediately raised my hand when you asked. The first thing, I think your question was, what is the plans for the back half of the campus? This is very important. Our plans for the second half, the other portion of the campus right now is to continue as Oakland Community College because that's where our health sciences program is until 2026. We are still receiving students. We are still holding classes there. There is no need to memorialize or eulogize that part of the campus because we still have students to educate, and it's important that we keep them focused that that part of the campus is not closing before 2026. And then the answer to your question for the rest of it, we don't know. We're focused on educating our students and on this portion of the campus. And then you asked if the community would have a say in that. Yes, our board meetings are open. There are public comment portions of every board meeting. For that purpose, everyone at every board meeting gets 3 minutes to talk about whatever it is on your mind. So that's why I also want you to know who I am and what my role is, because it's not just about this issue. It should be normalized. If you have issues, if you have concerns, if you have thoughts, if you have the $1 million idea, we want to hear about it. So to answer your question, yes, there will be always opportunities, and not just in a structured board meeting session at our board meetings, but also I'm literally the only Eunice at OCC. I am not hard to find. That is my job. I represent the college. I'm responsible to give you updates, but I'm also very responsible and held accountable to represent you to the college. We can't make informed decisions if we don't have that information. So Eunice Jeffries, like the freeway, I'm here, and thank you very much for your question. Those are just rumors that we're not that far down in our planning. Is one step at a time. And again, if you think about it, that's really not fair to our students to already be talking about having people come through there in class and we're showing the building. No, we're educating students. That is what our job is. That is our function. And until 2026, that is our focus. Our board meetings are, hope I get this right, the third Tuesday, because to me, all the days blend in, so. And they're taking a summer break right now, but our meetings are the third Tuesday of the month at our Auburn Hills campus. I believe they start at 6:30 in room G240. And there's always, those are subject to the Open Meetings Act, and so there's always a posting of when our board meetings are as well. Thank you for the question.
Why are you closing the campus? You want to educate your students with the location. Why don't we continue to educate the students and keep them in our area?
Because we want to educate students and meet them where they're at, and so they have definitely shown a preference for online learning. We learned that during the pandemic, I think, and I might not have these numbers exactly right, but we had less than 5% of our classes online prior to the pandemic, and you can understand that we had to quickly shift the way that we deliver services to students to online learning for survival and to keep the momentum going for their education. And what we've learned because of that, that they prefer online learning, so we don't need the additional space. So to hold on to properties that we're not using to its fullest potential is really a disservice to the taxpayers of the county to do that. So the best way to do it is to right-size our physical plan in the community and still deliver, the highest level of quality of education we can to our students. But they've spoken loud and clear that they prefer to be educated online. We have wait lists for all of our online classes.
So you don't think if you switch it from online to in person, it would make them go? I know we did it online for COVID, but now that COVID's done, I don't understand why they cannot come physically in, learning. Are you not keeping other campuses open?
Yeah, so it's a very consumer-based response to that. That's not what students prefer. Even if we did that, you don't force them and funnel them to come here physically. They'll make other choices and go to other educational institutions. I do not want to hijack your meeting though. So, but I appreciate the question, but if we saw evidence of that, we would meet students where they are, and we would keep the campus open.
You're gonna lose the whole footprint. You're gonna lose the whole footprint of the Links campus. Is there any way you can keep a small footprint, like say where the nursing program's taught? Because there's a shortage of nurses and dental hygienists. And I know you're building a new building down at Orchard Lake, but couldn't you also teach some of that here so you can keep a little bit of the footprint?
Okay, that was the $1 million suggestion I was just telling. So the answer to that is just to centralize, because we have health science operations in Southfield as well. So to centralize it in one location really speaks to the synergies that we can create in the field in general. So I appreciate the question. This is an OCC meeting now. Yes, ma'am.
I have a water.
Oh, okay.
Christy will bring the mic over to you guys, so everyone can hear you. Thank you, Eunice. Appreciate it.
So in August, on the primary election, there's going to be the restoration of the operating millage for the Parks and Rec, plus the millage that's been operating so far. So you're asking for an increase overall, right?
Yes, so, correct. We are doing a 10-year operating millage renewal and restoration. And what that means is we are renewing the millage rate that we are currently at, which is 0.4530 mils. The restoration, or the increase that taxpayers will see, is 0.4570, or 0.0470 mils. So it's a very slight, yes, it is an increase. No sugarcoating it here. It is an increase. It's a very, very small increase. It's like probably $10 or less, depending on your home taxable value. $4 increase.
Okay, so then you're asking for the new bond amount to be put on our tax bills.
Correct.
And plus, I didn't hear anything in there about that estimate giving any amount to maintain and operate the new facility. So that's going to be an additional amount, because what you're using now in the operating millage is what it's costing you right now with your current staff and your current location, right?
Correct.
So what is your estimate of the additional operating expenses you're also going to put on top of this?
So part of our feasibility study was to look at the operating costs for community centers in the area. Community centers range from about $30 to $50 a square foot to operate. The higher amounts are usually facilities that have aquatic facilities, larger aquatic facilities, multiple pools, that sort of a thing. So we're looking on probably the lower end for operations for this facility. We've worked with Robert to talk about that. We are going to probably need to look for, one, we will have increased revenues coming into the facility. That will help. We won't be operating the existing recreation center on Williams Lake Road, which will help. But we are going to probably have to look for some general fund contributions to help offset and operate at a cost neutral level. The operating cost of a community center this size could, depending on staff, depending on programming levels, could be in the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there is going to be an increased cost to run the facility. There will be things that are used in this charged for this facility to offset that. Yes, the bond cannot be paid to the operations. We will have probably some sort of a membership-based fee. Non-residents are obviously going to have a higher rate because they're not paying in towards the bond or operating millage for our parks department. The membership fees, which are not uncommon at any community center you visit, vary depending on the offerings they provide the community. So we would look at that as an additional way to fund the operations of the facility. If we're having fitness center, we're having different opportunities that can be included in the membership. That's going to be a give and take there as far as some revenue coming in, programs and services being provided to the users of this facility. So, yeah, pretty good? Yeah.
The two buildings that you have on the plan, why are we demoing them?
Because we don't have the money to operate them. So, yeah.
Would they be repurposed for some reason or hold them until there is a reason to keep them? Because that could be feasible funding.
could be feasible funding. I can't guarantee that they won't be demolished, because simply put, as the, voter before you indicated, it's on our department to make sure we can fund these facilities and keep them open and running. And if we're taking 4 buildings and we're not able to run them and operate them and fund that operations, they're gonna have to be closed down at some point anyway. So yes, I will tell you, we have looked into what other community centers have done to generate other revenues through rentals or lease contracts, whether it be with a medical facility or some other type of entity that could come in and do a long-term lease on a facility. So there's possibilities for that, but I cannot guarantee you right now that we would be able to sustain all 4 of those buildings that are shown in the map, because what we've looked at program-wise and budgeting-wise has been operating this building you're in and the physical education building, and then the frontage, the green recreation outdoor space there. These 2 buildings we are specifically looking at, Student Center and Physical Education Building, are comparable in size to the proposed community center that existed in 2018 on your ballot. That was about 72,000 square feet. It's about 60,000 square feet here.
Could you partner like with the county, like for mental health, suicide prevention, things like that? Because right now Waterford has nothing for that. And that's just as important as a community center.
I am not gonna say it's outside the realm of possibility. I think that is going to have to be something we look at once we get past the November bond proposal, see how the voters show us, and then we will know if it's a yes vote. Then we can hit the ground, boots running, to see what we're actually going to be able to do, sustain, and maybe partner and solicit other people. It may not happen, but there's a potential for it, obviously, yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank Waterford Township for pursuing this property. On behalf of people who live in the surrounding communities who would probably pay to join and to use this facility, I thank you. Just a comment regarding upkeep of the buildings. If you close the other buildings, sell them, etc., that in itself would save, because right now it can't be cheap to be running, 4 different buildings for the Parks and Rec Department? So all those utilities and everything and upgrades with those buildings would be eliminated, and then the funding would become into the center. My question is for John. How do the other communities fund their recreation center, or Robert, such as Redford? I understand they had ARPA funds and grants and other things that the taxpayers didn't even have to pay anything. And my second part is, in order to build a community center and a PE building center for the community in today's costs from scratch, how would you compare what this is offering the community versus starting from scratch with today's prices?
Great questions. So at Redford, there was a combination of financing that was involved with that particular project. There was no obligation bond vote, general obligation bond vote. There was ARPA funds that were available that were provided for this project through Wayne County. There was HUD funding. There was also general fund funding for that as well. And we're also looking at brownfield funding for some soils that we need to remove from the site. So it was a combination of different funding sources. A lot of times these recreation or community centers are offsetted with grants or different funding sources. We have to be very cognizant of how that money is spent, make sure that it aligns with government regulations. And to your question about this center, I was pretty amazed at the fit that we could provide for the program that was in the 2018 program into this space, and also the physical education building. I think the big bonus too is the amount of acreage that you have for this facility, being 51 acres, and also a connection to Hess Halfway Park, just over on this side of the campus. That being said, there's other amenities that you can provide that wasn't in the 2018 plan, like the dog park. There's a lot of opportunity for walking tracks around the facility. I think there's so many positives involved with this design Also, I believe the 2018 plan was on 13 acres, so this is quite a difference from what campus had to offer. Yes.
But if you had to build, just this one, in today's costs, from scratch,
We're looking at project costs, not construction, but project costs for new builds today is around $650 a square foot. That does not include a robust aquatic feature. Typically, when we look at competition pools, which have maybe 8 lanes with a rec pool and a therapy pool, those are running about $10 million just for that component. A lot of community centers are looking for a downsized aquatic feature, like Redford Township. They're just putting in a therapy pool. That cost is between 1.5 to 2 million. So, given what you have currently, I mean, these buildings have good bones. This particular building is in very good shape, I would say, but it needs to be modified to accommodate, of course, code and ADA and other program elements that you need for your center.
And just another, to maybe give an example, we did look at the proposal that was put before you in 2018, and that actual building, what it would be to build it now or in 2026, after the vote. It would have, when we were asking $30 million in 2018 for the new building, I believe the cost is like 53 to 56 million for the same building if we were to do it now. So it's an exorbitant increase over what it would have cost voters in 2018 for that new building on the Civic Center campus. So and that's why when we looked at that, because yes, it's gonna come up probably about the location, right? That was on the center of the township, I get it, but it's $53, $56 million. This is much less. Still a lot of money, I understand, but it's much less, much better value we felt for the community than spending a lot more money.
From the map that I saw of the footprint of what Waterford is gaining, it didn't include the nature center that exists on the campus. It's a substantial nature center with very hilly and I think a climax forest there, and it directly adjoins Hess Hathaway. And that nature center's been there 30 years, and it is used. I mean, I used it 2 weeks ago myself. It's very, very interesting. Used all year long. People, in fact, tore down the fence that used to separate Hess Hathaway from the nature center, and Waterford Township put it back up and they tore it down again. And now you have a very substantial fence. Is there any chance that that nature center can be acquired as part of the township property?
As the plan that's put before you right now and that will go before voters in November, there is a connection there from the wooded area to Hess Hathaway, but as it stands right now, we are not looking at the rest of that nature preserve going along the west side, north, along the back of the campus property. That is not something that is in this proposal before you that will go on the ballot in November. I do know there's a lot of community groups looking to preserve and sustain that area. So I would imagine there's probably going to be some talks with Oakland Community College. As Eunice indicated, they are not moving forward with any future plans until after they finish educational function here. So I would imagine there's still some time to have maybe an ulterior plan visited, talked about with the college.
Hello. I was wondering if you could report some of the figures relating to the nature reserve you looked at possibly including it in the plan during the process of planning for this.
Figures on the nature reserve?
Yeah, like getting the volume right. If you looked at the costs of including the nature reserve in this proposal, I guess if you didn't look at it, there wouldn't be any figures, but if you did, were there any costs, estimates associated with including it?
No, we did not look at going up any further. We were looking at more dividing the campus somewhat in half, taking the front half because we were really interested in connection to Hess Hathaway and 2 facilities that would serve as a community center along with the outdoor recreation space. So no, we did not get into figures going up the west border over the north border because we pretty much wanted to take a line going across to divide the property into what we could use for community center adjacent to Hess Hathaway Park and a connection there. So we do not have figures on that, no.
So you touched on it briefly, the impact of this acquisition on ongoing operational funds. Can you tell us approximately what kind of an increase in the assets does this represent? And if it does go through, what impact will that have on ongoing operational millage?
So currently we operate on a $2 million budget, our Parks Department. Our annual budget is $2 million. More than half of that is brought in through the operating millage. The other percentage is brought in through our program revenues and a very modest contribution through the township's general fund. And that allows us to operate our whole park system here, all of our facilities. We would be, with the on-take of this facility, we will be eliminating the Waterford Recreation Center, which is a 40,000 square foot facility. So you're trading that off for one of these facilities, somewhat alleviating some of the operational costs. There's going to be increased operational costs, obviously, with on-taking a facility like this. We're going to have increased hours, we're going to have, more programming, we're going to have a building that is the building that is comparable in size to the Waterford Recreation Center, and then another one added on that is an extra square footage facility. So there is an additional cost to that. We are looking at how to make things operate at a cost neutral level. There's going to be some give and take, and there's going to be an ask for the general fund to help us keep operating at a cost neutral level with added revenues we'll be bringing in for rentals or contracting with a medical facility that could bring in multiple thousands of dollars a year to utilize facilities. There's an added cost. I don't have the exact figures. We've looked at what it costs to operate a community center, but it varies depending on the amenities we're going to have here in this facility.
What are you planning? You're planning on adding something, and so it just follows that what you need to do is to know what the addition.
Right.
You plan, what is that addition?
The operations of a community center could cost about $600,000 to $800,000 a year. Okay, so that's the without aquatics. We're not having aquatics. We don't need all of that. So $600,000 to $800,000 a year to operate a community center comparable to this is the cost. We have a large cost over at the Waterford Recreation Center. We probably are going to need a general fund contribution over $500,000 a year to bring us to a cost neutral level. And that has been discussed with the board that there's going to need to be increased general fund funding coming to us or grants. Once this goes through, now there's not usually grants to operate community centers, but there are grants for other components of community centers that we could institute that could help bring us down to a lower cost out of the general fund.
Our concern about the operating costs are really legitimate because if you have a $500,000 right now, is that what we have for Parks and Rec?
Yes, we have 1.4530.
And what is that bringing?
Right now the millage is bringing in, testing me with all these numbers, I do know this. Right now we are bringing in with the millage, the first year if we renew it is going to bring in 1.5 million.
Okay, wait, so we need 600 million?
No, like $600,000.
$600,000.
Yes.
So we would need another $500,000 projected to.
Well, another $500,000 would bring in 1.5 million. So I don't think you would even need anything close to that. no.
So why wouldn't we just vote that in as a millage increase once you get this done instead of trying to get it out of the general fund? Because are we that flush with money in the general fund?
No, I mean, not necessarily, but I'm not saying that it might not come before you in the future.
Thank you.
I mean, to be completely, I think initially, some board members are here, and it would depend on the board at the time, what their decision is. The board's gonna have to decide, okay, first step is let's get a Parks and Recreation August this year to have Parks and Recreation, right? Our village renewal, that's the very first step, to be completely honest. We need our renewal and restoration in August. Next step is if you voters are in support of this and you want the bond to go through, that would happen in November. Then we would look long and hard at how we probably would not start occupying this building until 2027, okay? So there's gonna be some time for the board to decide whether or not there's gonna be a general fund contribution for 1 year, 2 years. Then maybe we come back to the community to say, do we need a 0.25 mil? Do we need a 0.2 mil? You know, something, it would be considerably lower, because 0.5 mils operates our whole park system, basically. So we don't need 0.5 more mils to operate just this campus.
My second question is the bond. What did you project the interest rate on that 35 million bond?
Yeah, right now they're projecting 4%.
Isn't that a little low?
We have a very high bond rating for the township, and that all comes into play, and we don't have any governmental debt currently. The township doesn't currently have any governmental debt.
So 4% seems reasonable.
And that's projected out to 2025 at 4%, when we would actually do the first draw for the bond.
Okay.
So if it passes in November, the first draw, we would do the bond in 2 series, because we wouldn't need all of it right away. We would because the school is still operating here until 2026. So we would levy 2 series of that bond. The first series of the bond would be for professional services. So probably maybe a third or less than a third of the total bond would be levied initially. And then the second portion will be levied once we start construction. So, yes.
Just to let you know, the board and Supervisor Wall has done a fantastic job with the budgeting and has greatly increased our fund balance. Having said that, we're more normal now, where we were in trouble before. We're not in trouble anymore. And as far as covering some of this, I think the board would be on board with trying to cover some of the offset. I don't think we really want to go forward asking for another millage whatsoever, come 5 years down the road for operating expenses. I think we're planning to cover that additional amount. Hopefully we could get some leases in here, we don't know that. But I will say that with proper budgeting and with the board that we have, we're very fiscally responsible, and we're doing everything that we can to make sure that your taxpayer dollar stretches as far as we can stretch it, just so you know.
And we have been, since we received our 10-year operating millage in 2024, we have been setting aside some funds annually earmarked for something just like this to come to pass. We knew from the get-go that, the Waterford Recreation Center, while it's an amazing facility and has served us very well over the many decades, was not going to be around forever. So every year when I go into budgeting time, we do set aside into a fund that's allocated just for like a savings plan for this type of a facility. So we have some foresight there. Over the last 10 years, some money's been tucked away for that. And as Kim mentioned, the township has a wonderful fund balance, but we've been very fiscally responsible within the Parks Department to have a very healthy fund balance and be very fiscally responsible with your tax dollars here in the community.
If you do demolish those buildings, what are you going to put in place of them?
The plan would just be to have green space there if those buildings are done. There wouldn't be any reconstruction. The Levinson Hall we did not have a plan to do anything with that if it was demoed. So it would be raised and left as an open area. High Oaks Hall, what we were looking at was some sort of auxiliary parking that's closer. Now the grade up to that building poses a little bit of an issue because we do realize, as you all found walking here, it's not really conducive to walking up if you have, you know, any type of knee issues or mobility issues or it's a little bit of a walk. So we want to develop closer parking. So we look to the west over here, maybe High Oaks Hall becomes some sort of parking. If not, it could be raised and left as a green space. So it's a facility we won't have incurring maintenance on, like roofing and, you know, all the things that could go wrong with buildings if they're sat and not used. We do look at putting some sort of closer parking maybe in here into this building, where there could be a drop-off area. When the township, we are still in talks with the school district about merging with the senior center, but that has been looked at, planning for their needs and use in this facility with us. So that would include, you know, a lot of WOTA busing, Meals on Wheels drop-off, so we need to have some sort of closer areas, closer to this building that makes it a little bit more accessible.
And when you purchase these buildings, is the furnishings coming with it, or do we have to buy all that all over again?
I don't believe the purchase agreement discussed all the furnishings, but I believe there's going to be some discussion with the college on what they are wanting to leave and what we could possibly utilize. There'll be a lot of the rooms, the rooms are locked for security reasons, but if you go and look, a lot of the rooms are set up for just like tables and technology. We're gonna need, which won't always fit our use. We're gonna need different types of tables and chairs and counters and sinks in the rooms and things like that. So there are gonna have to be things that we're not able to keep as is.
So there's been questions about handling the operating costs, and my question is, has anyone looked at what the sale price of the current recreation center would be, and could that be put into like an endowment fund that would help pay for any increased operational costs?
I would imagine we'd have to look at the deed a little bit closer to see if it could be used for operating costs. I believe when we looked at selling it, I don't know that we have a current sale price for that facility, but I think we were looking in over $500,000, I believe was the estimate for that property. So it's probably more than that now, but we'll work with the assessing department to figure that out as we progress through this. But for sure, the initial plan was to use the money to offset costs for this building, but we could look into the deed to see if it could be used for operating costs, which is a wonderful suggestion. So thank you for that. I'll make note of that.
Hi, my name's Art Frasta. My wife and I live on Hospital Road, right up the block. We have an estimate of what it would cost to run the building roughly, or run the area for a year. Obviously, we have money in the budget now that we're using to run the existing senior center and recreation center. So obviously, that money would be able to come towards this project. Those are unknowns. This isn't really a question, it's just an opinion. What isn't unknown is if we don't pass the bond, we won't have this opportunity again. So that is of the utmost importance. I think the fees will work out. Obviously, we have revenue from programs. We're talking about potentially some type of a yearly membership fee, especially for surrounding communities. There's additional revenue streams potentially from a number of items. I definitely believe that we can cover what it costs to operate this. Certainly in the initial few years until we actually see what really is going to happen here. What we can't see is what happens if we don't do the bond. So, I think the bond issue is super important, and this is an incredible opportunity. You're talking about what it costs to build a new building on 13 acres or whatever, and it was roughly 50 million. This is 60% of that, and we're getting 50 acres. The Nature Center, I think the Nature Center will work itself out. I believe there's a strong desire in the township to keep that. I loved what Eunice said earlier about working with the township. I believe I believe OCC has already gone above and beyond in working with the township to make this offer. Thank you, Robert. Thank Planet Moran for doing the project. I know you got paid, but that was a very good overview. And again, we're talking about financing in 2 years. It could be dramatically different one way or the other. But the point is, what can be different is we're not going to get this offer again. So that's really, I just felt like expressing that. Sorry.
Hi, my name's Diane Funk. I have 2 questions. Does this bond include all the courts and things that you'll be putting in? Like the courts and stuff that you'll be putting in?
Yes. Yes. Everything that was shown on that presentation by Robert has been factored into the bond.
Okay. Number 2, can parts of this be opened up as it's completed so that can be utilized in the meantime while you're doing the remainder of the, facilities?
I would imagine, depending on the calendar of how things go, I would imagine maybe if the outdoor recreational amenities
Like
are
things.
are handled in a manner that happens prior to the building, possibly, yeah. I mean, that's a wonderful suggestion, Diane, yes. I know we're not able to take possession for the purchase agreement for this building until potentially the end of, sometime in 2026. So basically the purchase agreement, I believe it stipulates any time during the calendar year of 2026, once OCC is done, we can then take possession and construction can begin. I don't know the timeline, obviously we're not there yet, but yeah, wonderful suggestion that yes, if we can get maybe the outdoor amenities opened up first, that's something we can definitely explore. I think wonderful suggestion. I'm making note of it.
So I have a few questions that hopefully aren't dumb questions. And first of all, I commend you for this plan, and I'd love to see, frankly, the whole piece of property salvaged. Certainly, it's a gem, and unfortunate only part of it would be saved. I think the other part will become probably residential or something like that. And hopefully, when the bond is presented, the story of what will happen if it doesn't pass isn't just that we won't have a recreation center. What will happen to the rest of the property? Does that make sense? So I have a question, and this is the part that I'm not sure makes any sense, but who are we buying the property from?
Oakland Community College.
And is that not a public entity?
Yes.
So I don't understand, why are we buying property from an entity we already own? I don't get the.
The township does not own that. So the township is a separate entity from Oakland Community College, as we are a separate entity from the Waterford School District. 2 different financial aspects. So they are the owners of the property, and we are looking to purchase this property from them. Just like, I don't know, if we were looking to purchase a parcel of property from the Waterford School District, which might occur with the Waterford Senior Center, there's 2 transactions, 2 public entities, governmental bodies purchasing from each other.
I'm sure that makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm sure others maybe it does.
There's 2 operating budgets separate. Their budget is separate from ours, so they have a financial or fiscal responsibility to their board and taxpayers who've paid into Oakland Community College for the school to sell it to someone, it happens to be us for this 51 acres, to recoup some sort of financial dollars for the sale. Now, $2.8 million is what is being asked for this property. That's an extremely reasonable price for 51 acres and 4 facilities. So they're not really like coming into a windfall. I know $2.8 million, that's a lot of money. But in the scheme of this type of real estate, $2.8 million is an extremely low ask for what we're actually getting.
Again, I support the whole plan, and hopefully it'll pass. 2 quick questions, I don't want to take over, but the parcel, the rectangular parcel on Cooley Lake Road, west of the driveway, is becoming what?
So when we went into discussions with the college, the desire on behalf of Oakland Community College was to, you kind of saw it on the map of reader. Maybe you can pull it up. I can't do 2 things like that at once. Sorry. Is to the 2 frontage parcels there that Robert will pull up. You could kind of see it's carved out there along the front of the road. Those would become commercial parcels. So that is something that was negotiated during the purchase agreement between us and the college. Still leaving us with a lot of green space there, the athletic facility, a big green area where people walk their dogs right now. I know it becomes smaller because of those 2 parcels. But we plan to keep the east part there open and not put any recreational amenities in. So we'll show you that once Robert pulls this up.
So my last question is the representation of the taxpayer in terms of hopefully the bond will pass. But we still have the other parcel. Where is our voice in what happens with the rest of that parcel? Or if unfortunately the bond doesn't pass with the entire parcel, how do I get a voice in what happens with this property?
So Eunice mentioned a little bit earlier, that Oakland Community College does not have a determination or decision made on the north part of this campus. They're only working currently with us on the frontage here, the 51 acres that we are looking at. They are going to be making a decision on that in 2026 after they finish their educational use here at the school. They don't have a decision on that. But as Eunice mentioned earlier, yes, you guys are taxpayers. Oakland Community College's board is a public body. They have public meetings at their Auburn Hills campus. I believe the 3rd Tuesday of every month. They break in the summertime. But look on the Oakland Community College website. You can attend their public meetings, voice your concerns. You can contact Eunice at the college to voice your concern as well. So, and it's important that you do that, just like you're here to voice your concerns and you come to township board meetings. They want to hear from you because you're a representation of this community.
Thank you.
And you can see here, so you can see the existing driveway over here that we're going to keep. And then this says new driveway. We're really not putting a new driveway in there. That was a conceptual thing we thought about, but the existing driveway at the traffic light here is going to remain. That's how you're going to access the campus here. And then where you're seeing the red line is the property we're taking or would be purchasing. And then these 2 this frontage area, the college would sell as commercial property. Or what they determined. That was just what was discussed. I don't know. That's something between Oakland Community College and a potential purchaser. The township is not handling that.
You know, I keep hearing everything about the parks and recs. What about the senior center?
Yes, I did briefly mention that. So we are still in talks with the Waterford School District about the Waterford Senior Center, as we have been for a good portion since end of last year. So we are close, but we're still working out some details with the Waterford School District before we can actually enter into an agreement with the school district or the township board vote on anything. But we have been working hand in hand with Erin and Danielle over at the senior center to come up with a plan on becoming one unit. We have, and we did have, just so you know, in 2018, we were very thoughtful about the space at that community center, that it would have incorporated all of the senior center programs, as we have been with this. We just currently, it is not our operations right now, so I can't technically say the Waterford Senior Center is going to be here, but that's the plan. I mean, we have a plan for the rooms. We have, you know, first story rooms here that could be used for encore if that's part of the, you know, that's part of the senior center that comes here. If the Meals on Wheels and we're part of the senior center, we have that bump out that was shown on the map for a meal prep area. So we've thoughtfully thought of making a meal prep area right off the kitchen, an easy way for the drivers to come pull right up, get the meals, and get out of here in a way where they're not trying to come through the front door of a community center and all that. So we've been very cognizant of the fact that this is coming. There's just some details the township and the school district still have to work out. And I imagine that's going to be happening probably within the next month or so. Oh, yeah, she passed the mic up, sorry.
This is for Robert. How much was the estimate for the entire property?
I believe it was around 33 million or so.
Right, that's what I heard too. 33 million for the entire property, and we're getting a third of the property for 2.8 million. I think that's a great deal. I compliment the board for negotiating such a wonderful deal. How do you do that? So thank you, Waterford Board. Who had their hand up?
So theoretically, when this bond passes, when is the soonest we would be able to utilize what's coming?
Good question. We just talked about that the other day. I think it's 2027. I think maybe did we say fall of 27, I think? Fall of 27. Fall of 27 is when we plan for this to be like completely opening, functioning as a community center. Because we realistically, if this passes, we can't start any type of construction in these buildings until after OCC is done here. Right, in 2026.
But you guys might let us come in and use it earlier if that allows possibility, outdoor stuff like that.
So usually the design process for a build like this takes about 9 months. And that's taking it from programming, schematic design, design development, to construction documents ready for bid. I would probably encourage a CM on board, a construction manager, to be on board with the architect to do estimating at those intervals of design development. And then once the construction manager is on board, they understand the project, they can phase it a certain way. For instance, the fields perhaps could be moved forward in the schedule so that we can get those done, because they're not really interfering with the renovations of these two buildings. So that's something I think is a great idea, so the community can actually use those fields, be out of the way of construction here at the two buildings, and the benefit is that, of course, you can start utilizing this campus and utilizing the fields early. Usually a build of renovation and whatnot associated with these buildings probably would be, I would say, 18 months of construction.
We don't take over until 2026.
Correct.
We would immediately start in 25, immediately start ascertaining professional services to do the design and all that type of stuff. So we have that time frame to get all set up, ready to go, bids out, things like that. And then as soon as the college says, go, we're done here, we can then start.
Are we going to keep all the aspects of the senior center together, from Encore, everything that we have? I know
that's what we're looking at right now, is to bring whatever is over at the senior center over to here. We realize how valuable all of those programs are, and we are, again, like I said, sound like a broken record, but we are still working out all the details with Waterford School District and the Township Board to undertake the senior center, or Overton, not Overton, merge with, I say merge, we're merging together. We're merging together.
Yeah, a
Yes.
program that should have been the townships to begin with.
Sure, right, so it would make sense to all be here, it'd be a wonderful location to have multi-generational programs and activities for everybody here. It makes sense to me in the many years that I've worked at Parks and Recreation. Can't tell you how many times people call us or show up over at the rec center for their tax prep or for some other component that is over at the Leggett building where the senior center is, and you feel just terrible trying to give them directions and get them over to that location. It's wonderful that we have a senior center and a Parks and Rec, but in most communities, those things are together. I mean, in one community center, oftentimes like this.
Sorry to hog another question, but was there consideration of putting an additional soccer field / flag football field in that area? Because flag football is huge, as is soccer. We don't have anything in this area at all, soccer.
So the reason we did not, there was some discussion about what we would use the screen space for. A lot of it, what it's for now, is going to serve our purpose, it just needs to be updated, right? So we did talk about maybe a soccer field or something out here. However, we have 6 soccer fields over at the township campus. Realize it's not right here, but we operate a good amount of soccer fields already. We have 13 ball fields that we operate throughout Waterford Township. So therefore, there's a lot of areas where we could offer those programs, and we do offer those types of programs in the township already. We felt it would be more beneficial to honestly keep update the amphitheater, because we have amazing concerts in the park program that we partner with the chamber on. We're kind of outgrowing Hess Hathaway Park as far as parking goes, and the crowds we're continuously drawing for these amazing events. Good problem to have, but this amphitheater here with more of the parking that's, to the south here would lend itself maybe to a better future use of that.
Okay, my last question, I promise. The commercial, and I've said this at board meetings at OCC in Waterford, that commercial strip, where was the public's input in justifying another commercial strip along Cooley Lake Road with the traffic problems we have and the vacancies that are already along Cooley Lake Road, T-Way Plaza, over by the pizza joint? Where was the public's, and maybe this is for Eunice, because that involves OCC, where was the public's involvement in any concerns regarding that? And will it have to be rezoned by Waterford in order to accommodate? And will there be a road impact study, et cetera? But that was my final question.
So from my knowledge, and I'm not in planning and zoning, but it has to be rezoned. It would have to be rezoned. So that's going to come before the township, ZBA or planning commission, sorry. Okay, so it has to come, there will be a chance for people to voice their concerns at that time. That is being the property owners, just like it's not the same, but I'm saying as a homeowner, you can sell your house to whomever you like. As a property owner here, OCC can sell this property really to whomever they like. Does have to be rezoned as such if that transaction involves a change in zoning. So, I don't know. We have not talked about that. So, I don't know, maybe that's something we could explore. That was just, obviously if you want to speak to the college about that, I would voice your concern to Oakland Community College, but also it would have to, if a sale takes place, that has to be rezoned. So that again would come before the Township Planning Commission, and you'd have a chance to voice your concerns about that as well.
Hear me?
You gotta kind of talk a little bit louder than that one, I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Gotcha.
I'm very pleased that there's potential exists for the township to get this. I live here, I utilize this park, to me it's a park, almost every day to walk. And so we all have different recreational needs and desires. Some people like team sports, some people just want nature. So green space is extremely important for mental health for many people. And so I want to really encourage Parks and Rec to look at that open trails, connecting sensory issues that people have. You need quiet, you need green space. In journalism and photography, it's called negative space. It's as valid as what is written down. And so just keep that in mind, that I so help. I feel like I want to go out there every day with the signs, like with the bond issue, when people see me walking, because I think it's so important. This is a gem. That amphitheater I used to go to all the time. It is absolutely beautiful because just its little bit of height is gorgeous. And it's so open and it holds so many people. Just that one thing in and of itself I'd use. I might not do pickleball, but I hope that people that like pickleball get to do that. So, you know, we gotta have interests and coverage for a lot of different things. So I hope the bond issue passes. I'm also very interested in preserving nature too. So I understand that's not part of your parcel purchase, but I just wanted this opportunity to mention it to Parks and Rec. It's not typical organized recreation, but it is part of enjoying the outdoors.
Yes, absolutely. And we recognize that. Thank you for your comment. And we do, yes, correct. While we are not looking at the entire nature preserve here, we do value outdoor, you know, natural areas, as we have the Drayton Plains Nature Center and Elizabeth Lake Woods Park, Marion Street, Mason Bay Lake Woods Park. We know how valuable those open spaces are. I mean, even if you take a look at Hess Hathaway Park, it's 162 acres. A lot of that land is trails through the woods. It's beautiful, natural, undeveloped space, while the front part of it is very heavily used and very, you know, heavily visited. The back part is almost like an oasis inside of that busy park. So we do, yes, appreciate that, yes.
Yes, I have a vision. I'm a climate activist, and I think we have to reduce our emissions dramatically. This is a great place, and I think we have a wonderful opportunity here. Rooftop solar, ground solar, some renewable energy such as geothermal, heat pumps, etc., which will dramatically reduce operating costs once you get the money for the installation. And I believe there's money out there from the federal IRP, might be some state money. So I think this should be, you know, actively pursued. Just saying.
I'll turn that, there's a comment from Robert on that because that's not exactly my area of expertise, but I do understand what you're talking about. We were talking a little bit about the 2018 building, how we could do energy efficient, you know, whether it's the green roofing or something like that. So we were looking at a lot of that at our prior proposals.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that comes up quite often in communities about sustainable energy and different approaches to heating and cooling a building. I know that there's a lot of funding out there from the federal government for solar panels and other items, but a lot of times what we do is a cost payback analysis too, see whether or not it's feasible to fit it within the budget. But I think it's appropriate for us to explore that once we get an architect and a construction manager on board to look at those alternatives for heating and cooling the buildings and also sustainable energy ideas as well. A lot of these buildings are becoming LEED certified, which requires certain constructability aspects of it that would meet the current LEED certification. So that's something definitely we could look at for this community center. Even though it is a remodel, there are opportunities for gaining those LEED points for sustainability.
She's coming. Oh, you're next.
My question was, where you are right now, Parks and Rec, is that building still gonna stay there where the courthouse is? And those buildings you're demolishing, can't you use those for something else instead of tearing those down?
So currently, our Parks and Rec department is split among several facilities. We have individuals who work at the Nature Center and Hess Hathaway. They remain at those locations. Myself and 5 of our full-time staff members are located on the 3rd floor inside Town Hall. We would come here. And then, as would all of our staff and operations from the Waterford Recreation Center. And then, as with the senior center, once the township and the school district agree and finalize all of that. So this would be the recreational hub of Waterford Township, and then we would operate our parks that we have throughout the township as we are now. There is another question though, right? I
The
forgot.
buildings you're gonna demo, you can't use those for something else besides just tearing those down?
So,
What's here?
yes, potentially, we cannot conceivably, without probably going to you guys asking for a lot more money for operations, operate all 4 of the buildings that are on this map. Could, between now and when we start the planning process, could there be some sort of other agreement with a lessee, a renter, a medical facility, someone said trade school, church, potentially? I mean, we will explore those options, but if those options are not sustainable and realistic and cover the cost of, maintenance and operations of those facilities, the alternative would be to demo them and leave them as green space. But we can't, within what we've looked at financially, operate all 4 of those buildings and right off the bat. But yes, we have discussed other options. So I don't have a definite answer, but we are definitely looking at different opportunities.
There are rumors that big real estate investors have already been negotiating with Oakland Community College to buy the back end off of Hospital Road. But Eunice was telling us, which is contradicting to what we've been hearing, that no, they're not negotiating anything until 2026 when they're finished using that for students. So I don't know if it's a rumor or not.
I'll let Eunice answer that, as we're not the property owners that would negotiate anything.
I'm so glad that you cited it as a rumor, because that's all it is. It's not true. It's not true.
Your 2018 project did not make it past the voters. What is your strategy this time to try to get this to pass?
Couple different things. I think that one of our strategies is to let the community members know how wonderful an opportunity this is to allow us to sustain part of this campus for community use for years and years and years to come, which wasn't an issue in the past. We were looking to build a brand new facility. I want to let the community know that we're looking to repurpose existing facilities. I know that is a big vocal issue that is always out there in our community. Whenever a new building is built, we hear a lot of voters say, why are they updating this building? They're building something new and there's this building sitting empty. So we are allowing the community to continue use of this building for the community. We are hoping to look to individuals in this audience who are here, who are supporters, to get the word out for us. And we would harness our existing recreation participants, the senior center participants, to help communicate to everyone the value and wonderful possibilities that could be here. And there would have to be a campaign run for the bond that can't be run by our Parks and Rec department, but we can put out factual information and hold a series of different informational meetings. I'd like to look to, like West Bloomfield right now is doing not exactly the same thing, but something very similar. They're looking to do a bond on the August ballot. They've held a series of virtual Q&As, in-person Q&As, all those sorts of things that we would like to involve people in this year before the vote happens, letting people know whether it's our sports participants, travel sports organizations, and any other groups that have contacted us about, oh, we want to rent gym space, or we'd love to do X, Y, and Z event or program, and let them know that this would be a wonderful opportunity in this facility, and spread the word that way.
I just have one question, maybe two. So are we gonna put something in our tax bills? Can we put in a notification explaining what we're asking when the tax bill comes out in September?
So, I'll verify, but what I know the township will do is once so the timeline for things roughly is, second week of August, the ballot language has to be finalized and approved and submitted to Oakland County. So what that means is beginning of August, end of July, I believe the township will have the official ballot language that's going to appear before you on your ballot. Then we can create some sort of a fact sheet like we've done for our millage in August. And something like this could be disseminated through the township's avenues, whether it be tax bills, emails, all of the above, in person at facilities, disseminated to individuals such as yourselves to help us hand out in the community. We can do those types of factual publications to people.
Okay, because that's probably a good idea. I worry about the people who are in the north, east, north, west of our township. This is a long way away. I know when I just try to get to I-75, it takes me probably 20 minutes to get through Waterford. And we're kind of alienating ourselves to people of Commerce, West Bloomfield, White Lake by putting it here, even though it is a great opportunity. I just worry about the people in the northern part of our township who might not agree with this.
And I realize probably besides an increase to taxpayers, the concern about the nature reserve, the concern about how much it's gonna cost, and the concern about the location in the township are probably the three biggest concerns that are brought up. I do realize that. We can't move the location of this, I understand. It is, my rebuttal to that is, I would hope people would still support it, because right now, if you live over here, you're driving all the way almost to the north side of the township to use our recreation center. So, I mean, not that that's not a wonderful answer. I hate to give answers like that oftentimes, but really, I mean, for how many years, if you live next door to here, you were driving all the way up to Williams Lake Road and almost Andersonville Road to utilize our center for decades. Yeah, so I did do the math, and I looked at where we wanted the community center in 2018 was almost the center of the township, right? So if you look at town hall building over to the existing rec center, it's 3 miles. And then if you look at town hall building to here, it's 6 miles. So I understand it's a difference, but I'm hoping people will see the value in it and the potential that driving maybe a few extra miles will afford them, tenfold in the opportunities and experiences they get to have here. So hopefully. We're coming around, folks. You're good, it's on. You just gotta kind of still talk a little loud.
If the millage fails, is there any alternative currently being discussed as far as obtaining other millage proceeds from other townships that might have an interest in this, or any other way of helping the fund?
So, you're referring to the bond then for this building. So
Yeah.
we hope our millage doesn't fail in August. So we have our millage is for operating, that's in August. Our bond for this, if the bond does not pass in November, no, we really have not discussed in-depth ulterior plans. We were kind of back to square one, back to the drawing board. we have the rec center, and we probably at that point in time would have the senior center. So then we would need to look long and hard at what we do with those two buildings, because we did not acquire this. So that's as far as we've gotten, pretty much.
I know this has been discussed, but who made the decision to carve out the Cooley Lake Road frontage? And why? And is that already done and that's going to not be part of the village that's up?
So the college made the request to make that delineation during negotiations, discussions. To my knowledge, I'm not involved in the sale of that, but I do not believe it's been sold or even listed for sale at this point. I don't know if there's an opportunity for that decision to be changed or not. That's the decision the community college made.
So I'm gonna take a stab at it. I don't completely know why the carve out was made specifically. I know that there was a lot of consultation with the master plan of the township. You just went through an exercise. And so I think there was maybe some concern to remain consistent with that, but I have to go on record 100% saying, I don't know.
The discussion about the distance to driving. I spent a lot of time at the Waterford Senior Center. I live close to the Waterford and Farmstead border. So my drive in the morning to the Senior Center, according to the odometer, is 5.1 miles. According to the lady who was talking in my ear, the directions over here this morning, my total distance was just slightly under 7. So, very little difference there. And for what more we're getting there, that extra 2 miles is not a problem at all. Thank you.
First, I want to thank everyone that came and showed up here today. As a fellow citizen, it's so great to see engaged people, especially hearing positive comments about the bond. You know, when you go home and you're sitting alone, you wonder just how many people know about this. So great to hear the energy in this room that overall feels like it supports the bond. So with that being said, I'm hoping, Allison, that you will tap into this energy by being able to sign people up that want to get involved. Once you get past that millage and we're into the bond talk and getting people to help with that. So if we can do a sign up or something as we leave to get contact information, then we hope to hear more as we get closer to the event.
Yes, certainly we could take information from those of you who are interested in being stayed up to date on it, maybe helping us hand out a fact sheet. So if you have that information, I don't know how many more business cards I have. You could leave your information with Carol and Chrissy out in the front. If you're interested, we need to start like a separate email list just to send out updates about the community center. Not so much a campaign for it, because we're not allowed to do that on township's time or staff. But we can maybe start some sort of we just updated new information on the website or something like that. So if you want to be contacted, add it to maybe some sort of email info chain that we could start. Christy and Carol have little pieces of paper, maybe leave your name there, or if you'd rather not, maybe grab my business card and just shoot me an email and say you'd like to be kept up to date with bond information, and you can grab one of these as you leave.
Yes.
I was gonna go without the microphone, but to the point of getting the information out, is there an opportunity to have information dedicated to a web page as part of the township, adding a Facebook page where there is a lot of Waterford this, Waterford that? That could be a communication tool that we could share with all of our friends within the community to make sure that the message spreads.
Absolutely. So we have a dedicated page right now. If you go on it right now, there's not a ton of information, but we are adding the presentation that was presented today to that. So we have off the township website, waterfordmi.gov/2024 Community Center Bond, and that QR code in your way probably. That will take you to the web page that we will continuously update with information. And then yes, we would be sharing stuff. It's pretty likely we would be sharing things through the Waterford Parks and Recreation Facebook page. Follow us on Facebook if you don't already. And the Waterford Township Facebook page. We can only share factual information through avenues like that. I imagine with the community support, there may be a committee formed for an advocacy group. They could share different messages than the township can share. So, not to say anything I'm not supposed to, but something like this could be put out on our Facebook page, on the township Facebook page, on the website, along with updates as we get into the process of, maybe, I would like to include maybe some of the Q&As, frequently asked questions that you guys, that keep popping up, and include those on this website, answer those hopefully for you guys, so you have that at your fingertips, and you can then refer your friends and neighbors to this page, and it will be updated periodically with more information.
Allison, we also have a Buffalo Wild Wings fundraiser for the millage. So there are signs available, there's information out there, there's a way of getting that information out. First, we have to pass the millage. That's the first part. And then after that's done, we have to work on the bond. This is a huge part of our community. We did Pastapalooza, you were there. 50 people, 60 people, and it was all positive. Everybody's looking at what's going to make a difference for Waterford and how we can impact. So please look at how the fundraiser impacts us as a community, because they need funding to make the signs, to publicize and make a difference. The Parks and Recs Department cannot be part of that. It is a separate entity. Most people don't realize that. Donna Kelly, Aaron's on the committee. There's a few others. I've only gone to one meeting, so.
All right, any other questions?
I do.
One more.
My concern is about people knowing about this, because the people that I've talked to, which is like my church group people that I have friends with, nobody knows about this. I've gone to my church group meetings, I met people for dinner. No one is aware of this. I was only aware of it because I saw something in the paper in Oakland Press about it, and the next day there was a meeting. And because of that, I knew about this. But since I went to the meeting, all the people I've talked to really have no clue. I know you guys talk about advertising, about Facebooks and social media and stuff, but not everybody is into social media. I am not. I get my stuff from the paper or the news, what I listen to. So I think you need to look at other ways. If I get something in the mail, if it came from you in the mail, that's something I'm going to read. If you get out to church groups or public places with information or flyers, then people would know more, because I think it's a great opportunity. My concern is I don't see a lot of people that know about it that I'm affiliated with.
Well, I agree, yes. And our struggle on the whole from our department, not just for campaign issues, but will be marketing, right? We've got some people who don't do social media and don't do online anything. Then we've got some people who do social media platforms like TikTok that we don't even do. So we're trying to spread that to people. So what we will ask is we need your help to get the word out, in all honesty. We will do our best to do, like, we engage the Oakland Press with things like this, different events and things we do, but we'll engage the Oakland Press, we'll do the website, we'll do maybe the tax bills, we can do things in our senior newsletter and different things like that where we're advertising. But we will need your help to get the word out about it. So no doubt about it, you guys have connections to people and, you know, resources in the community that we may not. They may want to give the information from that you hand them. I walked in there and didn't know me. They may go, set it aside. So we're gonna need you guys to, you know, help let people know, hey, this is gonna be, you know, a ballot proposal in November. So we'll get some sort of a fact sheet drawn up, you know, disseminated out. And like I said, if you grab one of my cards, we can open a line of communication and maybe you can help us push that out to your friends, family, and neighbors.
Hey, so we have a small nonprofit focused on nature conservation in the township called Conservation of Waterford Lands, and we have 4 quarterly meetings and 1 annual meeting for the election. We try to find a place around town to do that. It's not easy to do. The library's been helpful, but we have to pay more if there's going to be more people because of the room sizes. With a community center like this, would we be charged as a nonprofit to use empty rooms, or could we come in and use them? Oh, can you hear me now? Thank you. Okay, so the nonprofit our nonprofit has been looking for places to meet. We've used the library, we've used Shark Club. We did recently, thanks to Oakland County Parks, we secured some free meeting space, but it hasn't been easy to find a place to meet. And if we're looking at the community center proposal here, would we be able to use these rooms? We're as respectful as possible to donors' money, so we don't want to pay for rooms if we don't have to. Would that be something that we would have to pay for if we wanted to use space here?
Currently,
What is your nonprofit?
Conservation of Waterford Lands, or COW. Thank you. And we're most active on Facebook. There's a group. There's a page and a group. The group is the one that you want to look at. Thank you.
so currently we charge everyone to rent all of our facilities. I don't foresee that changing. We do offer a slight discount for a 501c3 nonprofit for rental facilities. I foresee that probably remaining as such. Can't tell you 100%. These things will all be part of how, after November, once we start planning, you know, programming and revenues and fee schedules and things like that will all be developed. I don't know that we could do free rentals because there's a lot of nonprofits in the community. That would be a lot of space. While I appreciate everything y'all do, it's not something we can necessarily accommodate everyone. So we've kind of gone back to charging everybody, but if you have your 501c3 certification, there's a slight discount on the rental rates. So.
Thank you. I do have one more thing I want to take a stab at. Because there was a question of the rumor of the north portion, the nature reserve being potentially residential. It is not a plan of OCC's as far as we can determine from speaking directly with the chair of the OCC board. She said, until they're done working with Waterford Township, they're not making any plans whatsoever. So that is true, but the reason it was a rumor was that a document was released that probably wasn't meant to be released. And from speaking with Oakland County Parks, we were told the edit was probably made by OCC, if not for sure. And then I did ask, did OCC make the edit, and got no response. So it's not nothing. It does cause concern. It's not an actual plan of OCC's, is my understanding. It's just something they were thinking about. So, but it is a great opportunity for us to tell OCC that developing too much of the nature reserve would not be popular.
Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank you all for your time. Your questions have all been very helpful and informative. We appreciate it. And, you know, my card is here, the website is here. If you have questions,